Good leader knows who they are and understands themselves. They understand the world around them, the forces, the pressures, the context. This is not enough, however. They must go further. They must grasp how they interact with and can impact their world. They must be humbled by their ability to change it. A good leader is visionary. They create a future that others can see themselves in. They are compelling, spurring others to action. They work in service, sacrificing themselves for the cause. They are inclusive, allowing others to feel ownership. Their vision is but a roadmap, not a mandate, leaving room for those that follow to leave their mark. They are transparent, opening their process and themselves to others. A good leader is willing to sacrifice it all.
Tell us what you think makes a good leader in the comment section below.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our chamber luncheon for June. Today we celebrate our Leadership Cheyenne graduates and the year they have had behind them and celebrate all they have done for our community. But before we start, I want to recognize Wells Fargo for being our presenting sponsor today. Thank you, Wells Fargo. So if you will help me in welcoming Bené Reyes and Carlin Quist of Wells Fargo. These ladies are going to share a little bit about them.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces. I've gone to Leadership Cheyenne in the past, so great to see everyone again. So my name is Bené Reyes. I am the branch manager at the Cheyenne main location in downtown. Here with me, I also have Carlin Quist. She's our senior financial advisor that supports Cheyenne, Sheridan, and Cody. So first and foremost, we would like to thank the Chamber for their continued support of our business community. We really value our partnerships with each and every one of you. We want to focus on the impact that we're having on the communities that you might not be aware of and make sure that we talk a little bit more about that and impact that a little bit more. So Wells Fargo has a focused approach to make a difference in our Wells Fargo community, or Wyoming community, excuse me. The key areas of focus for Wells Fargo are making housing more attainable, creating a more sustainable future, and building strong businesses and empowering financial futures.
As Bené said, the areas of focus that Wells has really been a proponent of as of late has been more affordable housing, which I think we've all familiarized ourselves with. That can be extremely difficult, especially in times of high inflation. Also building strong businesses, which we're all here today, and then empowering financial futures. And so in doing that, just a little bit of highlights that Wells has done for Wyoming specific, but just also in general. Over the past 5 years, philanthropic giving for Wyoming alone totaled $2.4 million. And then in addition, we have over 6,400 employee volunteer hours for the state. Two specific examples that we wanted to highlight today is first, Wells Fargo is a proud sponsor of WYO Gives for the 5th year this year and has contributed an aggregate of $50,000 over that time frame. In addition, annually, I don't think a lot of people are aware of this, we have a committed budget of $250,000, and I'm part of the team that actually helps place those dollars throughout the state. So think, a lot of you in this room, United Way, CAMIA, a lot of those things, a lot of those dollars go to those things, especially when it comes to housing, financial futures, education. And then secondly, something that was brought to our attention prior to coming up here today is that Wells Fargo announced this year that they're going to commit $20 million to advance the economic opportunities in Native American communities, working with Native-led organizations. So this initiative aims to address, again, housing, small business, financial health, sustainability among Native American communities, primarily in Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, Arizona, Montana, and New Mexico. So we wanted to highlight that. That's a pretty big commitment for this year. Going forward, we just want to thank you for the continued support, obviously, to Wells Fargo and your community. And we look forward to engaging with everyone here, both in the market and the community, and working together to build a more sustainable and inclusive future for all. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate so much that, I have served with both these ladies. I serve currently with Carlin on another board, and Bené was in my leadership Cheyenne class. And so I love to see the leadership that continues on with that class and young women in our community. So thank you. I also want to thank our other sponsors today, Little America being our gold sponsor, and Jonah Bank of Wyoming and Coldwell Banker, the Property Exchange, for being our silver sponsors for today's lunch. Thank you. Lastly, I want to thank our bronze sponsors as well: Blue Federal Credit Union, Cheyenne Regional Medical Center, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Wyoming, A&B Bank, Century 21 Bell Real Estate, the Align Team, Uniwyo Credit Union, and that's it. Thank you. So now I would like to ask Tara Nelson with Remax Capital Properties and the Red Carpet Committee to come forward and introduce your new chamber members for June.
Hello. So my name is Tara and I work with Remax Capital Properties, but I am a chamber ambassador on the Red Carpet Committee, and I get to introduce the awesome chamber partners to you today. So wondering about those in red outfits, we're the welcoming crew, making connections, hosting events, and spreading good vibes. Interested? See the chamber staff or any of us in red? Unlike myself, I don't have much summer red. So you got the red balloon today. So to start off with, I have Next Energy AI, DBA Wyoming Energy Association, LLC. And so it's Kelly, Tracy, Jana, and Ryan today. Next Energy AI, DBA Wyoming Energy Association recognized the commitment of Cheyenne's residents to renewable energy solutions. And on May 23rd, they opened their South Greeley Highway showroom to meet this growing demand. With over 100 installations in the area since 2020, they enjoy an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, all 5-star ratings on Google, and are proud to be a trusted Wyoming partner. Wow. Corp One Inc. I have Kelly and Sarah today. Corp One Inc., a veteran-owned and woman-owned company founded in 1989, specializes in company formation, commercial registered agent services, and corporate filings. As your #1 referred and trusted legal service partner, they assist with new Corporate Transparency Act, CTA, beneficial ownership information reports, and are headquartered in Delaware with offices in Colorado and Wyoming. Welcome. Next up is Lee Schwab Tiles, Emmanuel. Lee Schwab Tires in Cheyenne, Wyoming just opened in 2024, marking their first location in Cheyenne and offering top quality tires and exceptional customer service to meet all your vehicle needs. Known for their reliability and expertise, they have quickly become a trusted choice for residents seeking durable and dependable tire solutions. Next, I have Aspen Mountain and Plumbing, Cheyenne, and it's Travis and his wife, Jordan. Aspen Mountain Plumbing offers high-quality plumbing services to residents in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and the surrounding areas. Driven by a customer-first culture, passion for service, and commitment to quality, believing in trust, care, and reliability, they stand behind each service request, aiming to be the best, not just like the rest. And last, I have Old Town Salon and Spa, Mel and Cindy today. Old Town Salon and Spa in Cheyenne is your ultimate one-stop shop for beauty, offering hair, nails, esthetician treatments, tattoos, medical aesthetics, spray tans, and barber services. Dedicated to excellence in enhancing your natural beauty, Old Town Salon and Spa is a premier destination for a luxurious and transformative experience. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Amber with the Chamber, and I'm going to give you guys just a couple little updates that we have going on in the next couple of weeks. And just to give you an update, Dale is currently in Poland right now. He returns back to the States on Sunday, so we are going to have a lot of information to share from his trip. He was on a civic leaders trip with the chiefs of staff of the Air Force group. So he's been getting 10-hour-a-day briefings and all that fun stuff. So we actually have our Partners in Prosperity Luncheon coming up on July 19th at the Cheyenne Event Center. So please come out, join us for that. It's the kickoff for CFD. It's a wonderful event. We usually have about 500, 600 people attend that. So definitely get registered for that. We have our trap shoot coming up on August 9th. And we do have opportunities still for sponsorship. So please reach out to us at the Chamber and we could get you all signed up. And we're registering for teams as well. So please get on that. And then I just want to quickly just congratulate all of our graduates we have today. We're very proud of you guys. You guys have done a wonderful, you just guys have done wonderful this whole year, planning all of your classes, all of that. And we're very excited for Boo Ball this year. So you guys have done great. Okay, we're going to do our free lunch drawing and our 50-50 raffle. So for the 50-50, we have $73. So Amy. All right, the number is 0555541. Oh, yay! Awesome. Come on up and I can give you your winnings. All right, and then our free lunch drawing. So it is going to be J Blackshaw with KRRR. Perfect. So just see one of our staff and we'll get you registered for your free lunch. All right, guys, please welcome Tanya back to the stage.
All right, thanks, Amber. All right. Well, it is a great day to celebrate leadership in our community and also recognize some of the monumental challenges the future leaders are going to have to deal with. It is our great honor today to have our speaker, not only a great leader of this nation, but someone who clearly understands the challenges of our democracy and free enterprise that we will face in the future. Retired Major General Ferdinand B. Stas finished his Air Force career in the Strategic Command as a senior strategist for the defense of our nation. Ferdinand, or Fred, as some of his friends now call him, spends his time telling stories, telling the private sector about international risks to free enterprise endeavor. Fred was a natural fit for our community, both as Vice Commander of the 90th Missile Wing and as Commander of 20th Air Force. As a farm kid from Kansas, Fred understands the rural point of view and the threats that plague our way of life in the center of the country. Fred is widely known as the ICBM Yoda and is respected for his understanding of the deterrence missile mission that our airmen carry out in Cheyenne every day. Most important to us, however, is that Fred is a longtime friend to our community and our chamber. We are deeply honored to have him here today as our speaker. Please listen carefully as he is one of the wisest leaders you will ever interact with. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming retired General Fred Stas.
No, I don't.
No.
No, I was joking with the staff. Retired generals are technology challenged, and I just broke the clicker in like 3 seconds. And I need a timer, which is my my phone, which I just dropped. Anyways, it's great to be back. Again, in fact, at the time I've been here 3 times. I was here as a captain, and so I saw intimately and tactically how well you take care of our airmen, because I was just a youngster when I came here, and I was just brought into the city so warmly, and then again here as vice wing commander, and then as a number Air Force commander about 4 years ago when I departed. So many powerful memories. I live in northern Denver. It only took me 2 turns to get here, so I'm not far enough away. I'm not very far away, and just happy to come back more and more often. Want to thank General Porter and his lovely wife, Johnny Galbert, our senior military leaders that are here, and I want to thank all of you in the chamber for what you do to take care of our airmen, our soldiers, sailors, Marines, guardians, and so forth. It's just purely amazing and blessed to be part of this community. So let me see if I can get this going here. So, I guess a couple of thoughts. So thought number one is that I'm very introverted, very reserved. Those that know me know that that's true. Others don't believe that, but it absolutely is true. In fact, I was tested when I was a 2-star, and I'm 2 orders of magnitude more introverted than any other executive leader that they have tested. So I have that going for me. However, in this topic, I am passionate, and so I will go long. So whenever a speaker says they're going to go short, what do they always do? They go long. I'm telling you right up front, I'm going to go on the edge of long. But they told me my window, and I'm going to try to stick to it. But in that same vein, I'm going to try to free up about 15 minutes for Q&A. And so please think about some questions that maybe we could have a dynamic conversation on. Well, congratulations to our new young leaders. This is a incredible world that you're coming into geopolitically and internationally. So that's kind of the take I'm going to try to bring you on a journey on. Some of you will know this. Some of you have been there, done that, in this thing called a Cold War, of which this one is a Cold War 3.0, because we have the 3-party dynamic of Russia, China, and the United States, which is epic. But for many others in the room, because I see so many new faces and so many young faces, this may be something new, and it may be something that education hasn't perhaps provided all the background that could be pertinent to you. So hey, let's go back to the Cold War, and I want to step back a little bit before the Cold War, especially as it gets down to nuclear weapons and war. So let's go all the way back to World War I. World War I, 1914 to 1918. About 13 to 17 million were killed in World War I. How about we'll just round in the middle? We'll call it 15 million. Almost all of them were military. Very few civilians. Almost all military. But we had perfected how to kill our fellow mankind in that war with new technologies. Guess what? We didn't stop there. World War II. You ready for this one? About 60 to 80 million killed 20 years later in World War II. Until August of 1945, when the United States employed 2 atomic weapons on Japan that changed the world forever. And then changed the world forever with how great powers interact with each other. Then we didn't see a Cold War coming, but it came around 1947-48 with the Soviet Union. 2 great powers, 2 spheres of influence, 2 different blocks of ideology. And we entered into a competition that was unique because it was underpinned by nuclear weapons, which was which was and still is the most extreme, violent technology, again, yet invented. Not to say that one can't be invented in the future, that may be more powerful, but from them to today, clearly the nuclear weapons are the most powerful weapons on the earth. So we didn't know how to interact because this was new. So what we did was that in 1948 we had the Berlin airlift crisis, which was a crisis that we never really resolved. It just kind of resolved itself and it went away. So we still didn't learn how to interact with each other, how to dance with each other. We just hit the pause button on it. Then take us to Berlin, Checkpoint Charlie, Greg and Luke, where our armies were face to face, toe to toe, tank turret to tank turret, staring at each other in 1960 and 61. Once again, we didn't resolve anything, but both sides just decided to kind of ease back a little bit. It wasn't until Cuba in 1962 where it got real and real lessons started being learned. Both leaders, Kennedy and his administration and Khrushchev, they learned simultaneously that if you go to war with a great power with existential nuclear weapons, it could lead to a limited nuclear war, which could lead to an existential nuclear war. So thus it's best to not go to war because you don't know where it's going to go. So it took us about 20 years to learn that lesson. In the current environment that we're in, we have not yet relearned those lessons. And I don't know if those lessons are still applicable, but we'll chat about that here in a moment. So the Cold War ended dramatically fast. In fact, the Soviet Union did not know it was ending. So in 1988, I was on missile crew duty under the plains of South Dakota. And I got a message saying that the Soviet submarines are surging to our coasts. So either they mean to attack us or they mean just to scare us. But they meant one of those two things. That was 1988. By 1990, they had collapsed. And so, between 90, between 90, 91, it was the end of it. Well, when the end happened, we were happy. We called it the New World Order. We thought potentially civilization has advanced so far that we will never be in another great power competition. That movie had ended. We've moved on. We've left it behind. The United States was the unipower, and we were going to be a kind unipower. We weren't going to take advantage, or maybe not take too much advantage. And so we thought this could be sustainable for the foreseeable future. Maybe not forever, right? Nothing lasts forever, but for at least as far out as we could see. Well, that was not the case. In 2009, Robert Kagan wrote The Return of History. Again, 2009, just a brilliant geopolitical writer. The first sentence in his book says, "The world has returned to its normal state." It did. Oh, by the way, many of us weren't listening in 2009, right? You didn't hear great power competition in the press, in national policy, really until 2018, when Secretary Mattis on the National Defense Strategy, with his personal pen, highlighted that the world has changed. And by the way, it's quite remarkable that Secretary Mattis did that. You see, Secretary Mattis was a Marine. He had commanded CENTCOM. He was in tactical, operational war fighting violent extremists. And he was the one that came to the conclusion that is that is still a thing. That is still important, but that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is great power competition, of which we are now in. Just a quick primer on national guidance, because I'm going to give some quotes that goes through some of these documents that the Biden administration has published. So the superior one is the National Security Strategy, or NSS over here. So that's the first strategy a new administration makes. I don't know if it's required by law or policy, but regardless, it happens every time there's a new administration. Well, then you take this very broad national guidance, national security guidance, and the Secretary of Defense writes a national defense strategy. Within that is a thing called a nuclear posture review, which I'll be chatting about as well. So I just wanted to kind of highlight the hierarchy, if you will, of national guidance. All right, so over to the national security strategy from the president. The very first part of the document, as you might imagine, the first priority is that the Cold War is over, and we're now in strategic competition. That is point one, and that is going to remain point one for the foreseeable future. We are in great power competition. Of course, Russia is the acute threat. Do you want to take a wild, crazy guess while Dell is in Poland right now, and while the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, a civic leader group, is visiting the European AOR? Is because we are in crisis with Russia right now. The West and NATO is in crisis with Russia. Ukraine and Russia are not in crisis; they're at war, and you might even say at the existential level for Ukraine at least. And so that is just a prime example of how Russia is the acute threat. China is what we call in the military the pacing threat. The threat that is not the most real today, but has the highest potential and the highest risk in the future. So that's why we need to start pacing on the threat so that we are prepared when China actually makes their end game and tries to achieve dominance or over the United States, if not the world. But let me back up a little bit. Two other thoughts here. It's quite amazing that a dictator Xi and a dictator Putin have two similar thoughts that they came to independently. Thought number one is that they need to undo a justice. In Putin's mind, he needs to undo what he calls the worst thing that happened during the Cold War, which was the end of the Soviet Union. And so he wants to restore the prestige and the power and the regional dominance that he had, or that the Soviet Union had during the Cold War. Well, actually from 1917 until the end of the Cold War. In a similar vein, Xi wants to undo the century of humiliation. So it's really a little bit longer than a century, but from the mid 19th century until around 1949, China was broken up, fractionized, just loaded with civil wars and all types of internal, external chaos. But see, we have to go back to and reflect why Xi believes this. You see, in the Chinese part of the world, and in Asia, for forever, from antiquity until the century of humiliation, China was the center of the middle. So they saw themselves as the underpinning of Asia, and in many ways they were. So of course we didn't have global economics and globalism back going until somewhat recently, but China was always it, to use that term, always. So China's natural role, they believe, is to be it. And so they want to be the middle of the center once again. And now that the world is global, they want to be the global middle of the center. So they want to undo this perceived injustice. The second thing is they think that and I don't agree with them. I bet you don't agree with them either. They think the age of democracy is over. It's overstayed its welcome. And as they watch us through their eyes, they see us having increasingly isolationist tendencies, increasing our economies aren't as operating as successful as they thought they would, and they may be able to take a run at that. And they also thought, when they see our politics and social media, that we are divided, and they have an opportunity. And so, anyways, not that I agree with all of these things, but that's how they see it. So that's something in common both those leaders have. So now let's go back to national guidance. Task number one is defend the homeland, and ladies and gentlemen, defend the homeland and to deter strategic attack go hand in hand. So the first and second role are it. The 90th Missile Wing, they have been aligned in this mission since the very beginning, and they remained aligned. And now General Porter and his team and his awesome joint force is aligning to this as well. They were doing just God's work supporting CENTCOM, for all those decades. And then now there's another threat, a different threat, a more dangerous threat, unfortunately, as bad as violent extremism was, as we're going forward. Now let's talk about Chinese. Now I spent probably 3 or 4 different assignments as a planner, so I'm kind of a planner at heart. And when you're a planner, the first thing you do is that you need to understand the environment you're in. And so that I tried to lay out the environment that we were in very, very strategically. Now let me get to the highest end of their threats. I'll talk about Russia first on the bottom. With Russia in regard to nuclear weapons, it's best not to say what are they doing, it's what aren't they doing. They're doing everything, to include things which are quite frankly nutty. They're trying to make a nuclear-powered cruise missile that can cruise intercontinentally across the world. It hasn't worked yet. In fact, they've killed many Russians trying to make that thing work. A friend of mine calls it the flying Chernobyl. Because of what happened, it crashed one time, and when they pulled it out of the ground, it went supercritical and radiated a bunch of people around them. That's the extent that they're going. They have made a intercontinental high-speed torpedo with a huge megaton range warhead, so they can launch it thousands of miles off our coast, and it can go to our ports and eliminate the entire port. Again, quite frankly, nutty and dangerous. Their ICBMs are their staple. And so they have been producing. So even though Russia was down and out and had to take a knee, the one thing they made when they were down and out after the end of the Cold War is that they kept making ICBMs, the SS-27. And now they're making the Sarmat. The Sarmat can carry 15 warheads. And I don't know what Putin has against Florida, but whenever he shows videos of all of his increasing arsenal of weapons, he always uses Florida as the target. I think he's trying to show if he can hit Florida, he can hit anything else, but he does that every time. The new Russian submarines, both their fleet missile submarine that carries long-range missiles, as well as their more closer range Chevron Vince class submarines are dangerous. They are very stealthy and very capable. So the Russians weren't always known to be in that high regard in the sea, but they are now. The long range bombers, they can target North America to include the city of Cheyenne with cruise missiles that are launched in Siberia. The cruise missiles have that type of range. In terms of theater weapons, even though they violated the international they violated the INF treaty, and when they violated that, we finally disbanded the treaty because there's no point in having a treaty if there's not complying with it. Anyways, the Russians now have about 1,900 theater operational weapons. The United States has a weapon sharing arrangement, which I can't really get into detail on, but according to the internet, we have maybe 100 weapons, maybe 200 weapons, which is static. They have 1,900 going to 4,000 by 2030. That's all unclassified information, by the way. So it's not what are they doing, it's what aren't they doing. Okay, the Chinese have a minimum deterrent strategy, as they state, meaning that they will never initiate a nuclear war first. They would only retaliate, and they're going to have very few forces intentionally to do that. They had actually been like that for decades. They had a few handful of ICBMs. They slowly made a submarine program, slowly made a mobile missile program. But when I was at Stratcom around 2021, they strategically broke out. They hit the go fast button on everything. 320 missile silos came out of nowhere. Commander U.S. Stratcom testified to Congress last year that the Chinese in 2 years have more ICBM launchers than the United States does. So, ladies and gentlemen, our challenge here is that the United States had always maintained nuclear superiority, or at least nuclear parity as a minimum. We've never been at disparity. We now have a disparity which is growing. We don't know where the Chinese are going to end. Are they going to make a force equivalent to ours in size and scope, or just keep on going? The Russians are already going, and the New START treaty expires here in 2 years, and they are well positioned to break out of that as well. So this is the kind of this part of the briefing is probably the make you sad part of the briefing. And by the way, with our infrastructure, we are where we are. Best case scenario, we are able to modernize our nuclear weapons, which were planned and developed for a 2010 threat environment, not a 2030 threat environment or a 2040 threat environment, for a 2010. So all of our nuclear programs of record are not for the current environment we're in. It's for an environment from decades ago that we thought that the New World Order was in play and that we did not require an arms race, if you will. So you see the numbers over here. I'm not going to go through them all, but go down to the 20s. So the 2020s. You see that this is going to start growing. I don't think I have a laser pointer here. If I touched it, I'm probably going to break it. But if I were to take this chart and go out to the 2030s and so forth, you would see more red than blue. And by 2034-ish, you're probably going to see double red than blue. And we over-optimized our nuclear production capabilities to where the best case scenario right now, program of record, that blue line stays static as the red keeps on going up. Okay, I wanted to kind of take you through this one a little bit. I'm channeling my former Stratcom job here a lot. So over here on the left side, you see the spectrum of conflict. So today we're in the gray zone. You can find yourself in the gray zone. You can leap into crisis. Above crisis, the next step in crisis, if things get worse, is a conflict. If you have a conflict, you could have things like non-nuclear limited attacks, think cyber attacks, space attacks, things along those lines. And then you could find yourself into a limited nuclear war. If you're in a limited nuclear war, you could find yourself into an existential nuclear war. Then on the bottom is time. And then it shows just various potentials. And so, where you want it is that, or where the West and the United States wants it, that if we find ourselves, by the way, I should say, it's not going to be if we find ourselves in crisis with Russia and China, it's when we find ourselves in crisis with Russia and China. When that happens, we're going to want to off-ramp it to get it back to a status quo. Our adversaries may think that is not in their interest, and they may want to keep going and escalate. That escalation could lead to conflict. If that escalation leads to conflict, it could lead to non-nuclear strategic attacks on the homeland. After that, it could lead to a limited nuclear war, and that could lead to an existential war. So the moral of the story of this slide is everything is connected. And so as we're learning how to dance with Russia and China, nuclear is always in the background. Before you, but with how you deal with a crisis, you have to think about the potential for escalation. Some people just say, well, no, we have to control escalation. And by the way, I hate that term and that adage, control escalation. Can you, rhetorically speaking, can you control escalation? You cannot control escalation. For example, if one of you were to stand up and hit me, can you prevent me from hitting you back or maybe hitting you harder? You cannot. So the person, the individual themselves, the country themselves, they control whether or not they escalate. And when you have tools which go all the way up to existential nuclear war, you can't be out escalated. They could always choose to do one step higher than you, and they could do it before you. Of course, you have the same options. That doesn't fit where we want to go. We want a status quo, peaceful, democratic world. They do not. So in their view, their least bad option might need to be to escalate. So here the moral of the story is, when dealing with three nuclear peers, each of the nuclear peers, Russia, the United States, and China, each one has the capacity to determine if they want to escalate. So that's thing one. So everything's connected. Okay, here's thing two. Let's say we do find ourselves in a conflict. If we would be in a conventional conflict in the near term with Russia, what would probably happen? We found out through Russia's ineptitude in Ukraine that we would beat the crap out of them. Okay, if you beat the crap out of them, what option do they have? Escalate. And escalate into nuclear. Oh, by the way, the shoe's on the other foot. In the 1950s and 70s, we chose not to greatly improve our conventional forces. We improved our nuclear forces, that if we found ourselves in a conventional fight, we would go nuclear first. That's how we deterred them. We deterred them first with nuclear weapons, not with conventional forces. Now the shoe's on the other foot. So two scenarios there. Just again, for the third time, just know everything's connected. So anytime we have any interaction with Russia or China, you have to think all the way through where the end game could go to determine what your stake is and what you want to do or what you don't want to do. Okay, back to national strategy. So anyways, noble time for those in the nuclear business. That our national strategy is highlighted. This is critical. It underpins our joint force, a period dot, and it is just very, very important and powerfully needed. Here's our legacy. Just awesome weapon systems, manned and operated, secured, supported and maintained by awesome Americans. Let me talk about our nuclear triad here just a little bit, and just to kind of put a finer point on it. Everybody has their own way of making a pitch on the nuclear triad. I just thought it might be valuable for me to give you a few tidbits. First of all, I'll talk about the submarine force. We have 14 submarines each. We have handfuls of them out at sea at any given time. They're loaded with a lot of nuclear weapons. They are extremely stealthy. Adversaries can't detect them or find them. So this way, if an adversary would do a nuclear war against us, we could always retaliate, and there's nothing they can do about it because our submarines are so stealthy and quiet. So that's a very valuable capability that the United States has. Now on to the bomber and tanker force. Our bombers and tankers haven't been on nuclear alert since 1990, but they could be placed on alert. And if they would be placed on alert, that would be a very powerful and very bold signal that we would be sending that whatever's going on in the world, it's serious and we're taking it seriously. So that's the important role of our bombers. Our bombers deploy weapons on our mighty B-52. We have 76 of them. The newest one is 1961. The oldest is 1960. So anyways, oldie but a goodie. But our mighty B-52 also has our B-2 bomber, which is also nuclear capable, our stealth bomber. And then we can't forget about our tankers. We have hundreds of tankers that would be necessary for this incredibly important mission. All right, I saved the most unique one for last. I may have a bias because I am an ICBM guy, so I'll grant you that. But telling the ICBM story, it's also the most complex story to tell. So first of all, the ICBMs are designed to be highly available. So they have very high readiness with very high availability. Most of Johnny's ICBMs are on alert, ready to go. The same is true with the other 3 missile wings. They are also relatively inexpensive in comparison. So I love my SSBNs. I love my bombers. We need them. We absolutely need them. But let me just give you one comparison. So when I was on staff as a 1-star Air Force Global Strike Command about a decade ago, the head maintainer came to me and said, "Wow, I just got a strange conclusion, an interesting conclusion. You're going to find interesting." He said, to put one B-2 bomber, so one of our stealth bombers, we have 19 of them. Actually, we have 20 of them. To put one of our stealth bombers in long-term 300-day depot maintenance, to put one B-2 in depot maintenance, the same cost of that pays for the ICBM force for 2 years. That's just one bomber. That doesn't have the cost for the bombers flying, the bombers being manned, the bombers being worked on. That's just one cost for one bomber being in a hangar for 300 days. That just, by the way, tell General Bussier I love bombers. We need B-2s. I don't want to get rid of the B-2s, but I just want to highlight the delta in comparison of how inexpensive the ICBM force is. Okay, we're also the quickest to launch because we're highly available, high numbers on alert. We are the fastest to launch, and our adversaries fear that. Okay, also, we are located in the heartland of America. And so, a handful of things have to go on if an adversary were to want to take on the ICBM force. So thing number 1 is they have to attack the homeland of the United States. Thing number 2 is they have to use nuclear weapons. Thing number 3 is they have to have accurate nuclear weapons. Thing number 4 is they have to have a massed attack of accurate nuclear weapons. They likely have 2 nuclear warheads targeted on each individual ICBM. And then thing number 5 or 6 is because the ICBM is the quickest to launch, the president has the option of launching them before the nuclear weapons arrive. And so in other words, they would have to expend perhaps 1,000 warheads for nothing other than their own demise, because the ICBM force would catastrophically target them. So what should you do armed with all the information I just gave you? Our submarines are stealthy. You cannot stop retaliation. Our bombers and tankers attack 3-dimensionally if they were to be generated on alert. And our ICBM force is difficult to attack. And if you attack it, it could be unleashed and it'd be launched right back at you. So what should an adversary do? Not today, comrade. So that's why we do this. So that's why we maintain and sustain the triad, because we want to ensure that every day Putin and Xi are hearing from their staff, not today. The submarines are at sea. The bombers and tankers are ready to generate. The ICBMs are on alert and ready. Today's not the day. Do you see tomorrow being the day? Nope. They're always on. They're always ready. Our nuclear forces have to be ready on every day. There could be no Pearl Harbors, no 9/11s for the ICBM force and the submarine force that are continuously on alert. They have to be prepared all the day. The Russians and Chinese monitor us very closely. They know that we have the same readiness on Christmas Day as we do New Year's, as we do any other period. By the way, do I think the Russians would be in the same boat on New Year's Day or the Russian New Year's Day? I bet half of them are slurring their speech on vodka. Anyways, however, our force is always professional and ready to go. Okay. However, it's gotten long in the tooth. We have to modernize. So I know this community knows very well that Sentinel is coming. It's coming here first. Sentinel is just one of many programs. Our industry is challenged to make all this happen. But however, we have to do it. And then we probably have to consider about things beyond the current programs of record when we get into the out years. So right now the priority is to continue nuclear modernization and complete nuclear modernization, especially to include for this community, the Sentinel. It's going to be a challenge. Some to many of you are going to be challenged. There's going to be a great influx of people and capabilities that come in during the construction period as they make this as they change the game and go from Minuteman to a Sentinel weapon system. And we're going to need, in order to make this happen, we're going to need a village. So it takes a village. I'd highlighted when I was a youngster, came here as a captain. You guys took me in. Well, now you're going to have a lot of work coming in. If I were to bound it, everything from a digging and concrete all the way to plumbing and electrical and everything in between. and it's going to take us many, many years to modernize this system here. And so it's going to be challenges for some to many of you here in the local community. However, I would offer this to you, also a lot of opportunity, right? A lot of opportunity. And furthermore, this new ICBM system is designed to stay on alert up till 2075. So this community will have this awesome opportunity to have this continued partnership with the joint force that includes Colonel Gilbert's ICBM force. Okay, so now I probably made you pretty sad on most of those charts. I'd like to end though on a very appropriate and necessary end note though. Okay, as bad as the situation is, that there's an arms race going on. We are limited with what we can do in that arms race right now because of our over optimization to include our nuclear arsenal. By the way, our over optimization doesn't stop there. Recently, it came out about shipbuilding capabilities in comparison to the United States and China. So they compared Chinese and United States shipbuilding capacity, both for civilian vessels as well as military vessels. China has a 200 times advantage on shipbuilding, and we are making no new ports. That's just using ships as an example. Okay, however, with all that said, with a terrible war going on in Ukraine, with the crisis we have with Russia, with Ukraine, with the possible likely crises, possible conflict with China, with all those bad things going on, of the three parties, of the three players, Russia, China, the U.S., who would I rather be? Hands down, I'd rather be the U.S. We have several advantages. One of them is our economy. We have the world-class economy. Yes, China's number 2. They might exceed us for just a little bit, and then the economists think even if they do, they're going to drop back down again. The United States is going to maintain the dominant economy. And so that is a very powerful thing. In order to create influence, there are 4 levers of national power. Well, because we're military, we have an acronym. We call it DIME. And so D for diplomacy, I for information, M for military, E for economy. It's not by a priority that is done, but when you're in the gray zone, remember my chart on the dynamics, when you're in the gray zone, economy is probably king. It's very, very critical. So we have the number 1 economy, and we're probably going to keep it. Here's number 2. We have the world's best joint force, period, dot. And we will for the foreseeable future. The Chinese numbers are growing quite dramatically. It's very concerning. However, they don't know how to fight jointly. They've not done it. Russia watched us for 30 years thinking they could do it in 2022 when they tried the massive invasion of Ukraine. They fell on their face on day 1. It's harder to do. And it's really hard to do if you don't have extremely professional, competent, trained, disciplined warfighters. And that's what we have. And we're keeping it. So our economy, our military, and the third thing that we have a huge advantage on is allies. We have allies, and they're real allies. NATO is the gold standard of our alliance, but we have many more. We have many bilateral alliances in Asia. Our adversaries, Russia and China, they don't have allies. I know you saw the recent deal between Kim Jong-un and Putin. That's false. I'm sure Kim Jong-un believes Russia will be there if they have a war, but will Putin be there? He will not. And so this was just to get more arms and weapons and things like that to help them out with Ukraine. Does China have any allies? They have kind of one. It's called North Korea. Is that going to be a dear buddy? Or are they going to really help you out? So no, what it is, Russia and China, they have transactions they do, generally through bullying and behind the scenes threats. That's how they do it. That's not how we do it. So our best economy, world-class joint force, and we have real allies and partners. And our adversaries will never have any of these things, I believe, at least in the foreseeable future. So that's the good news. Okay, hey, so I hope I have some time left. Let me check my watch or my phone, and hopefully some questions. And I think they have a microphone to pass around if there are some questions. I did pretty good. It wasn't 30 minutes. It was about 33 minutes. Did I just scare the crap out of you? don't want to hear more bad news. No, the question over here.
General Stosh. Sorry. Thank you for coming and speaking today. We really appreciate it. My name's Stephen Leafgreen, and just on behalf of the community, thank you for speaking. You talked about the influx that we're going to see in our community. What do you suggest this community does to best embrace that process? Just from a community level, is it education? Is it build up workforce? Walk us through just a couple of thoughts there.
No, that is a great question. I don't know if I'm best positioned to help you out with that with that precise events. But one thing I would offer is learn lessons. In fact, Patrick Collins's dad was one of the foundational heroes that went from missile wing to missile wing when they first came in the ground. So one thing would be is go back and take a look. What was the footprint that was here and probably 62 to 65 timeframe would be a pretty good one. And by the way, there are many histories written around that period, so that might be one idea for you. Another one, in military terms, and Greg and many of the military leaders here know this intimately. We develop contingencies. We kind of look at what's the best case scenario, what's the worst case scenario, what's the most likely. So as you're looking for these future challenges that are coming on, think ahead. Think what would be like the most extreme footprint that would come in, what might be the low end, and then where might be the sweet spot in the middle, and then use that as a baseline. And then there's a saying that plans never make first contact with the adversary. In this case, be ready to adjust your plans. And so keep going and revising and checking on the plans to potentially make them better. So those are just a few things that come to mind. That is a very good question, and one this community continues to ask. One advantage that you have, when we first put Minutemen in the ground, it was an imperative in a national crisis. Now, I personally believe this is an imperative as well. However, it's on a longer timeline, so you do have a bit more time. Anyways, I'd use that time wisely in that regard. That's a very good question, especially for everybody in here. Okay, thank you.
Hello, sir. My name is Ben. So you quickly touched on how we've been in conflict over the last few decades and have gained experience from that. But it has also given adversaries such as China the opportunity to study our capabilities and tactics. How do you see that affecting future events?
No, I do. Again, the Russians had done the same thing. They weren't successful with it. The Chinese are going to probably take that more seriously because the Chinese also saw the Russian debacle. So they now know is you can't make a doctrine of a joint force doctrine and just push the I believe button that is going to work. You actually have to exercise it and use it. So China is going to they're going to collectively make doctrine. Then they're going to try or start training to it. Then they're probably going to start trying to apply it. China's last combat action, China's last major combat action was in Vietnam in the late 70s. They got their butts handed to them. So anyways, I think the Chinese it's going to take the Chinese quite a while to figure this out. I don't know. I don't believe they're going to be able to pace us in that regard. So they can make more airplanes, even make maybe better airplanes, make more ships, maybe not better ships, but more of them. So they can what I kind of fear in that regard is mass. They can outmass us. And sometimes outmassing you can be successful. So I don't think that there'll ever be a professional force able to go toe-to-toe professionally with us, but potentially they could outmass us, if that makes sense. That's exactly what Russia is doing right now to Ukraine. It's just a meat grinder for the Russians. They're pulling people from their hinterlands, people who aren't the Central or Western Europeans. They're pulling people from the hinterlands, especially in Asia, and they're just giving them a minimum training and just pushing them into the line, and they get chewed up. China has one more challenge in that same regard, that they're largely conscript. And I know every now and then there's a call for draft in the United States, and by the way, I understand that there's good reason to have a broad segment of our population with military service, and if they don't naturally join, to consider conscription to where some are forced to join. We have chosen not to do that because it is difficult, if not almost impossible, to have an exquisitely disciplined and professional trained joint force if they're forced to be there. We want people who want to be there, who are inspired to be there, and who want to grow the next generation to be there. So the Chinese aren't going to have that either. So I guess in some ways your question, I don't think their joint force can get there as close as they watch us, but there is a quality and quantity. And I think that's their end game probably, is to have a quality through quantity. Thank you. Good. Well, Cheyenne, I'll miss you. I'll be back every few months. Again, I'm two turns away, but that also means that you're only 2 turns away from me. So hope to see you. Hope to see some of you in Denver, and I'll be back up every few months. So thank you again.
Thank you, General Stas. Certainly a deeper discussion than we're going to get on our nightly news. Okay, so today, as we move into the graduate portion for our Leadership Cheyenne class, while this is a conclusion for them fulfilling this year, it is a part of a personal leadership journey for these guys. The program is designed with a desire and commitment for lifetime civic trusteeship. And we hope this is certainly the beginning of that for you guys. As we move into the presentation of that, I would like to first recognize, if you are in this room and you have been in the Leadership Cheyenne program, will you please stand? Nice. Thank you, guys. And then I would say standing if you're part of the steering committee for the current class that we have right now. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Okay, I would now like to invite Brad White, Reese Johnson, Matt Hubbs, and Stacy Emerine Walter from this year's class. Brad was selected by the class to say a few words, and Reese, Matt, and Stacy are this year's co-chairs for the Boo Ball. So please join me and welcome to the stage.
Thank you. I get the privilege to talk regarding leadership Cheyenne, the class of 2024. So first off, on behalf of the Leadership Cheyenne class of 2024, we would like to thank the Chamber for this program and each of the organizations that sponsored each and every one of their participants in the graduating class to attend. It did take resources and time, and so we appreciate that. We also want to thank the steering committee members and those presenters and speakers that were able to come and take time to impart knowledge and understanding on each and every one of us. So even though the many questions we asked, and definitely put some thoughts into their minds. So thank you for all of them. Leadership Cheyenne for the class of 2024 has given us insight and understanding into various industries and how we interrelate towards a common goal of making Cheyenne region a better place for all of us. It also gave us pride in knowing what our city is a part of and how we are impacting others across the state, the region, and nationally. Within this class, the networking, team building, and other experiences allowed us to see issues within the community through a different lens and start looking at ways on how we can assist. Understanding how we play a larger role and the impact we can make on others and our future generations. Being able to see the impacts of individuals and groups stepping up to assist in a need and not just expecting others to do so. Really looking at civil trusteeship and our part we need to play for our community. So many organizations and entities were able to share their stories, successes, and current issues, from NPOs, small businesses, corporations, various government entities from all levels, and large businesses. Leadership Cheyenne class of 2024 is not just graduating and being done with, but looking at how we are continuing the momentum going forward. With the Boo Ball in October, supporting our class project related to safe routes for the community children, in which many of you have assisted, just shows our class how this community can come together to make our community better for not just now, but for the future. So in short, thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks, Brad. I'm Reese, and as Tanya mentioned, I'm one of the 3 Boo Ball chairs this year, and I also happen to be this year's class project chair. And I wanted to tell you about what the funds raised from this year's Boo Ball will be supporting. When we were brainstorming ideas for the class project, we thought about what Cheyenne might really need, and safety and crosswalks was at the top of the list. Too many distracted drivers are hurting kids on their way to or from school here. And likely you've heard of the nonprofit for MAC. And if you haven't, I invite you to look up and read their mission, because MAC and others like him are a driving force and the reason why this project was submitted. We're hoping to be a part of the greater solution. Our project fits within the broader scope of the Cheyenne MPO's Safe Routes to School plan. There's already other entities in town that are working on better crossing lights, and this includes the Hawk systems and other flashers. There's a potential crossing guard program in the works, and in-school education for kids to learn how to safely cross walks by foot or by bike. So we're choosing to focus on pathways to and from school. And we're working very closely with the City of Cheyenne, LCSD number 1, and the MPO on these, and we couldn't be more grateful for their partnership and support. So our project has already been greenlighted to become a pilot project that will pave the way for each elementary school to have at least one lit and physically marked safe route. Our project committee has chosen 3 elementary schools, 1 for each triad, that will have one route lined with 3 to 4 foot high bollards. And those bollards will have either LED or a solar component added to add light. These lights will be color coded and will coordinate with an updated safe route map. And those updates are going to be published by the MPO later this fall. We're also going to work with a local artist to have each bollard vinyl wrapped with a custom design made to look like a pencil. Can you imagine a couple streets in a row lined with pencils with coordinating LED lights? How fun. And we're very excited. These pencils will not only designate the blocks that are safe for student walkers, but will also help light some of the pathways at dusk. The new maps will serve as a tool to educate parents, teachers, and community members about which streets have heavy foot traffic to send their kids along, because there is power in numbers, and as well hopefully discourage cars to drive down those streets. At the very least, it will alert them that there's a heavy student presence nearby. We're working with 3 select schools this year for just these 3 routes, but know that there are 24 more elementary schools out there that aren't being touched yet. And this is where you come in. If you're wondering how you can help, there's 3 things that you can do. 1, buy a table or a ticket to the Boo Ball this year. It's Saturday, October 26th at Little America. The theme is the Wicked Wild West. And I'm certain that you probably have cowboy gear available. The second is become a sponsor. We have so many different sponsorship opportunities still available. And 3, we're taking silent auction items as well. We have a number of ways you can be involved and recognized. And if you just want to throw money at us, we'll take it. But we appreciate your support, and thank you so much for being here to celebrate us today. I have the honor of introducing Tracy Wilson, the chair of the Leadership Cheyenne Steering Committee, to speak next and hand out some awards.
I did prepare a speech, but for the sake of time, you don't have to hear it. I truly, my privilege right now, is just to announce our 2023-2024 Cheyenne Leadership Class. As the names of the class members are read, each will come forward to receive their plaque, walk across the stage, and then move to the chamber backdrop for a group photo. Individual photos can be taken once the lunch is adjourned. Josie Bailey, Pinnacle Bank. Danielle Brown Jones, Greater Cheyenne Chamber of Commerce and Wyoming State Parks and Cultural Resources. Amy Dooley, Riverstone Bank. Stacy M. Ryan Walter, Boots of the Ground Productions. Mickey Fisher, Wyoming Bureau of Land Management. Kate Fornstrom, 45 Ranch Supply. Paul Fornstrom, Cactus Veterinary Services. Maggie Hartzheim, Double H Home Loans. Ben Herbert, Coniag Government Services. Matt Hubbs, HF Sinclair Cheyenne Renewables. Jennifer Jennings, Little America Hotel and Resort. Reese Johnston, Coldwell Banker, The Property Exchange. Heather Morgan, A&B Bank. Graham Peterson, Blue Federal Credit Union. Quentin Pope, Jonah Bank. Mark Pueb, Laramie County Community College. Shelby Rush, Wyoming Army National Guard. John Shantz, U.S. Air Force 90th Maintenance Group. Jeremiah Singleton, Wyoming Air National Guard. Shelby Trimble, Unawyo Credit Union. Sharon Bai, Banner Capital Bank. And Brad White, Cheyenne Regional Medical Center. We We also had 4 students who were unable to attend today's ceremonies. Allie McCone, Laramie County Community College, Shelby Rush, Wyoming Army National Guard, Caleb Cameron, Cheyenne Fire Rescue, and Kelly Bending, First Steps Pediatric Dentistry. Let's give them all a round of applause. Now please welcome Tanya back to the stage.
All right. Congratulations, you guys. All right. So as we bring this to a close, General Sauce, thank you again so much for being here today and presenting to our community. And as we move forward, we have our Partners in Prosperity Luncheon. That will be July 19th. That'll be at the Cheyenne Ice and Event Center. Certainly one of our biggest luncheons of the year and not to be missed. So we will see you then. Thank you all.